Mohammed Adamu has been given a 3-month extension in office as Nigeria's Inspector General of Police. This is to allow the successor to be chosen. Adamu's tenure expired on Monday after he completed a compulsory 35 years in office. Right, let's go straight to it now. Adesua, we've been looking at this for quite a while. It's finally happened. There's been an extension. Dr. Abba decided in antecedents of some extensions yesterday, about a year. 3 months down the line, is there going to be more extension? That's what people are asking.
And it's a valid question because if you look at it, I mean, IGP Adamu had served for close to 4 years and retired effectively on the 1st of February. And then we had that lull in 3-4 days before the president eventually took this decision to now extend by 3 months. So the question is, did we not know that IGP Adamu was going to retire? Did we not know that there needed to be a replacement? Why this fire brigade approach? Why did we need to stir up this controversy about a replacement and extension of tenure? Was it absolutely necessary? And why are we extending for 3 months? Yes, it is a prerogative of the president to hire and fire, but what was the justification for all of this? What is IGP Adamu going to do in the next 3 months? According to the Minister of Police Affairs, this is to enable for a search for a proper fit for the office. So it doesn't tell well to think that we had all this time, but we are making this last-minute rush, to fill such an important position at such a time when we are dealing with myriads of challenges with insecurity. Wherever you look, at a time, Rufai, when we're talking about insecurity in the country, we're majorly looking at the northeast of the country. But wherever you look, the 6 geopolitical zones are plagued with insecurity challenges. Yeah. So I don't think that, this tells well of the sense of urgency that Nigerians, are expectant of for an administration promising to tackle insecurity repeatedly. I
mean, when I hear the word search, my question is, how deep is that rabbit hole?
Yeah, how long does it
Dr.
go?
Abati.
Well, I mean, we've been on this subject for days, from allegation that, or disclosure that the president was in Daura, and that whenever he returned from Daura, he will solve the problem. And now we have this clarity. What we know is that the president has extended the tenure of the Inspector General of Police by 3 months. And the Minister of Police Affairs, Mohammed Dakin Yadi, I think, that's the name, has said, look, this has been done to give the president enough time to take a decision. So that's why it is possible to say, well, this looks unconscionable, because the retirement of the Inspector General of Police with effect from February 1 was foreseeable. And if the government wanted to show enough seriousness, it could have planned towards it if the intention is to change the Inspector General of Police. However, we have precedents. I've cited on this program the fact that in 2007, Sunday Ihidero's tenure was extended by a whole year by President Obasanjo. Now, in 2010, the tenure of Michael Kiro as Inspector General of Police, as he then was also extended by 1 year. Now, okay, are we going to rely in this matter on stare decisis, which is the principle in law? If 2 previous presidents took that decision, does it make it right? Okay, that's another question hanging there. The third leg of the analysis is as follows. At least 2 senior advocates of Nigeria have commented on this. Michael Zekome, SAN, whose knowledge of the law you cannot question, says that this is illegal, this is unconscionable, this is unconstitutional, and he was relying on specific sections of the law. Section 215, subsection 2, Section 216, and also he quoted Section 17, subsection 6 of the Police Act of 2020. Ebunolu Adeburua, who is also a learned counsel and a knowledgeable person in the law, has also said more or less the same things as Michael Zekome, SAN. And he too is quoting Section 215, Section 216, and also Section 17 and Section 8 of the Police Act. But there are questions that remain. If you look at Section 215, Section 216, the President of Nigeria is given near absolute powers.
Monarchical.
Well, yes. The Constitution itself is a constitutional monarchy. Gives the President powers to choose the Inspector General of Police for only one police force that exists in Nigeria. Now, I know Adegborough quoted Section 215, I think subsection 2, which says that the police, the Inspector General of Police shall be a serving officer of the police. Now, did his tenure effectively, according to the law, expire on February 1? Did he cease by the morning of February 2 to be a serving police officer of the Nigeria Police? Now, the combined effect of the powers given to the president under the Constitution, does it give him powers to extend the tenure of the Inspector General of Police, as he did under Section 218 of the same Constitution with regard to the service chiefs that just left, and as Obasanjo did before him, and as President Yaradua did before him? So these are legal issues to be argued. So for the various counsel who have been coming forward and have been quoting different sections of the Police Act. Yes, the Police Act, I remember that. Section 18, 1 to 4, 1 to 6 of the Police Act 2020. Okay, what is the effect? Can it have retroactive effect? That's a critical question. Because at the time Mohammed Adamu was appointed Inspector General of Police in 2019, the Police Act 2020, as amended, was not in effect. So can the law have retroactive effect? The basic, one notorious principle in law is that a man cannot be punished for a crime that was not existent in law at the time, that he committed the crime, which is the big issue about the Bartholomew Owolowo case under Buhari when he was head of state. So these are issues that can be trashed out in the law court. However, let me summarize. The summary is as follows. One Maxwell Okpara, I hope I got his name right, has gone to the Federal High Court in Abuja to test this. So when there are issues about, how to interpret the Constitution, the only recourse you have is to go to their lawsuits and seek a proper interpretation. That case was filed, I guess, before President Buhari extended the tenure for 3 months. But the lawyers can go there and say, well, is this constitutional? We should test it. The fact that Obasanjo extended Ihedero's tenure or that Yaradua extended Okiro's tenure may not necessarily make it right. After all, President Obasanjo declared a state of emergency in some parts of Nigeria. And there are lawyers who are guilty tomorrow that that was illegal. So where people have doubts, they can go to court and test it. So, but for now, Mohammed Adamu remains the Inspector General of Police. Yeah. And one other thing that we would like to draw his attention to, in fact, two. I mentioned one yesterday. The unresolved matter of the lady in, what's that state?
Well, I think it was in the Southwest.
Yes.
Or you said I was pregnant.
Yes, yeah. The woman that was pregnant and who was sacked, and there was public outcry. He said he had asked for an investigation. It's taking too much time. Yeah. It doesn't take rocket science to investigate and take a decision. The second thing was that yesterday he was involved in an activity decorating police officers that have been promoted. And he was not wearing a face mask. Now he is guilty under the COVID-19 regulations of 2021 released by the President of Nigeria. He, as the Inspector General of Police, cannot be going around violating the law because he's the chief law enforcement officer, as the police chief of Nigeria. So he has to pay attention to that. Next time, we want to see him with his face mask.
No, what's the penalty for that? Because, in fact, we here at Arise will be COVID police. That's all. And he said, we'll take a short break. When we return, we'll have the team and we'll talk about business, sports, and everything. All right, let's go straight to you this morning. Rotsu, anything on business? Talk to us. Rotsu.
Yes, there's lots to talk about on business. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Adeswa. Good morning, Doctor. We kick off with Shell. Shell has had they've had a rough week, a really rough week over the past 7 days. Their CEO, Ben Van Buren, was talking to reporters yesterday and saying that Shell is going to have to reconsider Nigeria's onshore assets, which is, of course, the assets that are in shallow waters, as a result of repeated thefts and vandalism that they've suffered at the hands of course, of miscreants. He said that, look, we've tried to protect these assets as much as we can, but they've just continued to suffer vandalization and theft. Shell's subsidiary here in Nigeria, SPDC, Shell Petroleum Development Company, according to the CEO Van Beurden, they've disposed of about 50% of their assets over the last 10 years. But still, he said that they have to now take a further look at the assets that they have here. So it's not a good situation. This is generally one of the headwinds that oil and gas firms face in Nigeria. There's also the issue of piracy across the Gulf of Guinea and so on. So a number of issues for them. So not very good. If you look at their financials, I talked about this with Michael Wilson yesterday on the Global Business Report. I mean, look at that. Q4 adjusted net income 393 million, down 86% versus the fourth quarter of 2019. Cash flow from operations just 6.3 billion, about 40%, almost 40% lower than their from Q4 in last year. I think it was about 10.4 or 10.5 billion. And then full year at the bottom, their full year earnings for 2020 4.8 billion, down 71% from 2019. So oil and gas, I mean, they've, of course, the coronavirus affecting demand and so on and so forth for derivatives of oil and gas. The oil and gas giants have really suffered. And then, of course, there's also the farmers. In fact, on this day last week, we actually broke it on the Global Business Report. A appeals court in The Hague, a Dutch appeals court, ruled against Shell with respect to pollution that taking place in the Niger Delta and affected about 3 or 4 farmers. So they finally won a judgment in an appeals court against them. So you put it all together, and it's just been a tough week for the Royal Dutch Shell, the oil and gas giant. Over to tech, the NADDC, the National Automotive Design and Development Council, NADDC, is unveiling a locally assembled electric vehicle. We actually talked about this back in November when Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu unveiled the vehicle, the Hyundai Kona from Von Automobiles back in November in Lagos. But the NADDC now, they, of course, this is part of their mandates, as far as automotive design and development is concerned in Nigeria. They're going to unveil the vehicle today in Abuja. After the unveiling, then they're going to drive it across parts of Abuja where people can get to see it and maybe test drive it as well. This is according to the Director General of the NADDC, Malam Jilani Aliyu. So, I mean, again, we already covered this in November, but now it's going to be unveiled in Abuja. And the whole point is that Nigeria is climate aware. Nigeria is making steps towards climate friendly vehicles. Of course, there's the issue of whether we have lights and so on and so forth, and then manufacturing issues with other fuel cars we use for that already consume actual fuel. There's those issues as well, but we'll leave that alone. Finally, there's a text. Look at this text from a bank. With Valentine's Day just around the corner, spice things up with an instant loan today. Simply, and I removed that because I don't want to advertise. Simply dial star, whatever, or download to get started. Terms and conditions apply. Now, look, from the perspective of financial inclusion, USSD loans, being able to allow people to be able to access loans from their phones is great. But to get a loan for Valentine's Day, I don't think is financially responsible. So that's our Africa update.
All right, I'm really excited about what the National Automotive
Development Council
is doing. But I'm not surprised. In fact, I say that's long overdue. You mentioned Malam Jilani Aliyu. I'm sure you remember who he is. That's the person that designed General Motors electric cars, Chevy Bolts. That's the same person. You know, he was touted so much then when they were having this campaign about how great Nigeria was doing. And that was the same Jalila Aliyu that designed a Chevrolet Bolt. That's the electric car of General Motors. So I'm excited he's putting the same thing too in Nigeria. It's long overdue. And I want not just, you know, to parade the car in Nigeria. I want this car to be manufactured. We should set up companies that can put this car together and take it all over Nigeria so that people can be employed. I keep telling people that the most important social program ever in the history of humanity is 3 words. Let me tell you the 3 words. Jobs, jobs, and jobs.
Yes.
If you create jobs, an economy is excited, people can do what they want to do, they can truly live their dream and live a Nigerian dream if there's truly anything like that. So I don't just want them to stop at the process of just showing the car and parading. They should set up sectors, factories to be able to assemble this car, create jobs for more Nigerians.
Well,
Indeed.
First point. I mean, this reminds me of the effort with regard to the first electric vehicle in Nigeria that will be launched, as you have reported, of the effort by Ben Bruce. Yeah, that's the name, Senator Ben Bruce, in 2019, when he went before the Senate of Nigeria, yes, and he proposed a bill, what you call the electric car bill. Do you know that his colleagues laughed at him?
Exactly, yes.
They said this was a case of a misplaced priority.
Yes.
So wherever Senator Ben Bruce is this morning, he will feel truly vindicated that at last his country, in 2020, yes, Volkswagen, the Volkswagen plant in Ojo was where the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, tried to launch this whole idea of the electric vehicle in Nigeria. And you're absolutely correct. It's about clean energy. It's about innovation. It's about Nigeria being part of this, you know, new trend of checking the environment and making sure we are environment friendly. Every year, the president of Nigeria goes to the UN General Assembly, and we talk about climate change, we talk about the environment. Maybe this is one demonstration. However, the car that is going to come from that plant, the car they are launching today, the cost, I'm told, is 24 million naira.
Yes.
So how many Nigerians will be able to afford a car of 24 million naira?
I cannot. I know I can't.
And how will that make any difference?
Right.
But it is good to see that there is some thinking, some progressive thinking, some idea about innovation in a country where people hold on to the guardian syndrome. You know what the guardian syndrome is. That's not for this morning. Now, the second point about Shell, is this a reaction by Shell to the judgment last week, in fact, Friday last week, at the Netherlands court on the matter of oil spill in 4 communities in the Niger Delta? You know that Shell had gone to court. That case had been in the Netherlands court since 2008, yes, for 13 years.
Yes.
And the argument that this was a case of sabotage, that in fact it was the host communities sabotaging their facilities. Now, the court did not uphold their position. The court ruled in favor of the plaintiffs. Now, Shell has the right to go all the way to the Netherlands Supreme Court to push his arguments further. So Shell now saying, well, we are going to cut away from our onshore operations. Is this a way of preparing for the defense? But I think for us as Nigerians, what we should be more interested in is in the interest of the oil communities, host communities, yes, that complain perpetually about environmental damage, that complain about oil spill, and that complain about the commitment of the Nigerian government to those communities. Take the Ogoni oil spill. The Ogoni people, they got judgment against Shell many years ago. Well, 5 years ago. Up till now, that Ogoni oil spill claim that we've been talking about, nobody has worked on it. Governor Wike of Rivers is complaining about it. The Nigerian government is doing stop and start with it. So there are many dimensions to it. Shell may be playing too clever. But I think what is important to us is our own interest and the interest of our host communities in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you, Rotus. We'll go on a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk to you. Right, welcome back to the morning show. Moving on to business now. More business, I should say. Michael Wilson joins us from London. Michael, great to have you.
So globally then, the overview is the only game in town until today's US jobs figures is the fact that there's hopes that the Biden stimulus plan will actually go through smoothly in the United States. It may not. So that sort of has helped markets right away around the world. There's been a mixed picture in Asia, but not enough to knock markets off their post-Wall Street afterglow, if I can put it like that. Japan, household spending, South Korea's trade balance overperformed. And it's on Wall Street, the S&P rose 1, the Nasdaq climbed 1.25, the Dow about 1. So generally speaking, that lifted Asian stocks. Nikkei climbing 1.35, and the Shanghai Composite up by about 1%. Now here's a very important IPO in Hong Kong. This is the TikTok rival Kuaishou. I think that's the correct pronunciation. It's a rival to TikTok. It's not TikTok, it's a rival to it, and shares in that only tripled on their first day of trading in Hong Kong, propelling the valuation to within touching distance of ByteDance. That's the one that actually owns TikTok. Company stock gained 194% this morning. And ByteDance is also considering a listing in Hong Kong. So things going well as far as tech's concerned. Let's move our attention to politics, if we may, in the United States. And President Joe Biden has beefed up his foreign policy team with several experts on Asia. It's a move that analysts are saying shows renewed efforts to raise US standing in a region where China's influence is growing. It's identified the growing influence and a more assertive China as one of its biggest foreign policy challenges. But it is also saying in the same breath that it hopes the US, or Joe Biden's hoping the US, will re-engage with the rest of the world after Donald Trump, particularly as far as things like climate change and trade is concerned. I'm going to introduce you to a new word. Shall I tell you what it is? It's called Chipageddon. I'm sorry about this. It's not mine. It's just what somebody's... It's terrible, this stuff, isn't it? Computer stuff. Computer chip supplies run short. There was a hint of the problem. Do you remember last year when Apple had to stagger the release of its iPhones, and the latest Xbox and PlayStation consoles came nowhere near meeting demand? Well, just for Christmas, it emerged in the resurgent car industry, this Chipageddon. New cars often contain as many as 100 microprocessors. Manufacturers were quite simply unable to source them all. It's no big deal. It's just that the industry has been caught between a lack of demand and then suddenly massive demand. So in other words, it's failed to, as it were, cope with the top of the demand right now. And it's likely also, of course, that car makers will be revising their supply chains as a result of all this, which actually could have quite big effects as far as international trade is concerned. I'm going to take to the UK now, and the Barclays boss, Jess Staley, has said that the financial industry, he's backing Britain, basically backing London, saying that although jobs have been lost, there will be more creation as a result of Brexit, and the industry should stop looking at Frankfurt and Paris and start thinking about places like Singapore and New York. And he feels as though the gain from Brexit will be actually big rather than little. So he's a glass half full person about Brexit. The UK central bank, the Bank of England, is predicting a strong bounce back. It's looking at the fact that the COVID vaccinations will help the economy get very strongly again. It is expected to shrink 4.2% in the first 3 months of 2021. That's huge, actually. But after that, it may well be that there'll be a rebound after the spring and a bit of household spending spree, if you like, because people have not been going out and spending money. There was talk yesterday about negative interest rates, but they do not appear imminent at all. There was just a message to banks to prepare themselves to think about it over the next few months, but no move. This is classic, two-faced stuff, basically. Prepare, hurry up and wait, I think is what they say in the army, don't they? The EU, Sweden, Denmark and Japan have got negative interest rates. I don't think they're going to happen here, but there we are. An important media thing here, UK regulator has revoked the Chinese television license of CGTN, which has a big complex in West London. Ofcom, the company that owns the UK license for China Global Television, that's CGTN, doesn't have day-to-day control over the channel, and its Star Media did not have it. That's the supposed owner of it. Did not have editorial responsibility, and in UK, the broadcasting rules say that licensees must have control over their service and their editorial policies. And if they said that CGTN are ultimately controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, which is not permitted under broadcasting law. Okay, so that will increase tension between the UK and China. Commodities, oil has edged higher. Rotus touched on Shell. We did, as he said, talk about it yesterday. But, you know, it's interesting, isn't it, that the actual price of crude oil is set to hit about $60 a barrel. Brent is now at 59, if you believe the technicals. But what we're seeing from the likes of Shell, BP and Exxon, whom we've covered extensively over the past week, is the fact that they have a slightly more holistic view of oil, and they are producers and they're retail producers as well as just pumping the stuff out of the ground. So therefore, they've suffered. Gold, it's suffered overnight, basically. Yields, US Treasury yields rising, so therefore gold down over 2%. And although it's come back to 1795, it is what traders are calling in the market, it's an old phrase, this a dead cat bounce. I won't go into the details, that's too unpleasant to get it right.
Two questions.
And finally, no, okay. just a second, Doctor. And finally, the big one today, US jobs. That is the most important thing, and that will decide how the largest economy in the world is actually going. So if those figures are good, then the markets will end the week on a positive note. Now, Doctor, over to you.
Well, Michael, two questions. The first is about silver. Silver seems to be doing very well. Silver coins, particularly in the United States, exceptional demand, even with the fact that it's dropping. From $7 to $5. Why is silver coins so important? Why are silver coins so important to investors? Is this about Reddit and that Wall Street matter that you discussed the other time? The second one is about the Bank of England. The Bank of England has been expressing a lot of optimism about the future of the pound sterling and all of that because of the progress that the United Kingdom has made with immunization and reports that at least about 1 in 5 adults in the United Kingdom have been immunized. But the Financial Times this morning was reporting that optimism may be misplaced, that in fact the reality that the Bank of England may face later in 2021 will be high interest rates if its projections fail. What's your response to this?
Well, I disagree with your analysis of it. I think that what those reports were trying to say is that there is not going to be a loosening. If anything, there might be a tightening, but it will be very, very gradual indeed if it were to happen. I think it's too far ahead to actually, we can talk about scenarios. We were talking about this yesterday. I'm very, very loath to get into forecasts. I can take you through all the scenarios you want. Forecasts are very, very difficult indeed. I would say about the Bank of England, and I'm sure it shares this with a lot of other central banks, it does have agents in different parts of the country, and that's what the Monetary Policy Committee meets to it's a 1.5 day meeting, and they meet to consider those kind of things. So I don't think there's going to be a rapid rise in interest rates. I may be wrong, I just don't think there is. I think that, but the bias is towards tightening, hence the increase in sterling. But I don't think that we're due for a rapid rise in interest rates. As far as their positivity is concerned, well, why not? I mean, if we are really ahead in the race of vaccination, that means we're ahead in the race of lockdown. And believe me, people will want to get out of that pretty quickly. We'll be going to the pubs. They won't be pouring away beer like they are right now, and all those kind of things. We'll want to go into the centres of town. We'll want to meet people, for heaven's sake, instead of being isolated in our own homes. So I would imagine, I mean, it's a pretty fair guess, isn't it, that people who've not been out spending money will want to buy something. It may be meals, it may be clothes, it may be experiences.
All right, Michael, take this for next week. The Australian fight with Google, how they can use the French model to resolve it, that's going to be number one. And number two, probably next week, I'd like to talk about more about holdco structures and the stock market in general. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great Friday. Thank God it's Friday, like they say here. Adesua, over to you.
Thank you, Rufai. Well, there have now been over 104 million infections of the coronavirus globally and 2.2 million deaths. It is true that some countries are beginning to see a reduction, but others are still seeing a rise in infections. Here in Nigeria, the Nigerian Center for Disease Control has confirmed another 1,340 cases in the last 24 hours. The latest data shows that the Federal Capital Territory saw the highest numbers with 320 cases, followed by Lagos yesterday. Now, the light at the end of the tunnel for African countries as regards vaccination. The WHO in Africa says African countries are done waiting on the sidelines. Dr. Mashidiso Moeti, who is the WHO Regional Director for Africa, yesterday announced that Africa is to receive nearly 90 million COVID-19 vaccines this month in what will be the continent's largest ever mass vaccination campaign. Now, most of those vaccines will be from AstraZeneca and Oxford, and it is being subjected now to emergency use by the WHO. You recall that only the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine has received emergency use by the WHO. The statement also adds that around 320 doses will actually come from Pfizer and BioNTech, and this will actually go to 4 countries at the moment, Cabo Verde, Rwanda, South Africa, and Tunisia. And this is because they are able to store and distribute doses of those vaccines that require minus 70 degrees Celsius. And just as the Nigerian government had clarified in recent days, Nigeria will receive an initial 16 million dosage from the COVAX facility. Away from that, to the UK, where scientists have launched the world's first study of examining whether different coronavirus vaccines can safely be used for 2-dose regimen, an approach they say could give extra flexibility and even boost protection against COVID-19 if approved. Now, the clinical study is a £7 million study backed by the government. It will run for 13 months. And of course, it will be testing alternating AstraZeneca and Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine in 2 short schedule. Meanwhile, ministers in the UK have been accused and criticized for failing to act more urgently on coronavirus vaccine disparities after data actually showed that white people are almost twice likely to have been vaccinated than black people in England. Now, the data on 23.4 million actually anonymized primary care patients in England by the Open Safely says black, Asian, and mixed ethnicity people are all less likely to have been vaccinated than their white counterparts, among those in the ages of 80 and above. Now, according to this new research, a lower proportion of ethnic minorities have been shown to have received at least 1 dose of the vaccine as at 27th of January. Now, equality campaigners have said that the calls to ministers 10 months ago have been ignored. They called for the government to protect overexposed black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities. And they say that this is not so much about vaccine hesitancy, but institutional mistrust in accessing public services such as the NHS.
I mean, that BME, ME community is really, really underserved in England and in the NHS. And there's been that discrepancy. It's been tough for the Tory party because the Tory party has to come clean on it. There has to be that balancing act, but the Tory party has not done a great job as regards inclusion at all. And it's quite sad. And it's beginning to trickle down to vaccination in the UK. You're seeing from strong indications now that this same subset society is left behind. I mean, we'll go to a quick break. I'll come back and continue with comment. We'll be right back. Right, so welcome back to the morning show right here. We're talking everything COVID-19. So I said England should try it as much as possible to be able to put this in place because, you see, when it comes to vaccines, everybody needs to get it. We need herd immunity. This is not the time to project those long-held racisms that have been institutionalized, and we found ways institutionally to be able to silence them to appear as though it's not working. Real quickly, I'll come back to Nigeria. I keep having one plea, and I'll have it every morning. Dr. Ekweazu, I know you might be watching. We need the result of the zero prevalence test to be able to know where we are as regards the fight against COVID-19. My point is, I'm not comfortable with the numbers that are churned out by the states, and they're saying, oh, this and that. It doesn't reflect the true nature of people dying from COVID-19 by the day. And I think robust data will help a long way in making people understand where we ought to go as regards the virus and the fight against the virus. So my plea is every day, zero prevalence test.
Well, Adeswa, the point you raised about the racial divide in access to the jobs in the United Kingdom, it's not an old issue. Indeed, in the United States, the issue was raised about the percentage of persons who were in fact affected by COVID-19. And it was resolved in certain reports that persons who are referred to as BAME, Black, Asian, minority, ethnic, were the most affected persons. And there was a whole argument in the United States about access to the report. Now you have, with regard to access to the jobs in the United Kingdom. So this is about racism. This is about racial divide. But the key point that everyone needs to bear in mind is the argument by the WHO and also by the director of the WHO program in Africa, who says that, look, equality of access is very important. And the equality of access is about the fact that, look, if you focus on a particular set of people or a particular set of developed countries, invariably, on the long run, you endanger the entire human community. Indeed. So that's why we have to talk about equality, we have to talk about equity. Now, you mentioned the point about Africa, about COVAX alliance. Well, how many people will realize that that COVAX alliance involves Gavi, involves WHO, and involves the Center for Epidemic Preparedness Initiative, which is sponsored by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The same Bill Gates that people like to demonize or condemn. But the 90 million doses that, COVAX Alliance is promising for Africa is only relevant to just 2% of the population. For us to even be able to immunize up to 160 million persons in Africa, up to 40% of the African population, you will need up to about 160 million doses, which they are proposing by the end of 2021 and by 2022. Now, what does this mean? What it means is that African countries do not need to just depend on the COVAX Alliance, the COVAX facility. They need to take proactive steps. And we have the example of South Africa. I cited South Africa on this program previously. South Africa is approaching AstraZeneca. It wants to even buy at a premium. Instead of the $2.5 per dose that developed countries are buying, South Africa is offering $5.5, right? South Africa is also talking to other manufacturers. There's also the African Union Vaccine Alliance. Now, African countries are also, some African countries are also looking at that. South Africa is there. And then, of course, you have the COVAX Alliance. So we would like to see a situation whereby these African countries, take the initiative. And even COVAX, WHO, is saying that you have to be prepared. You must submit a plan. As at this moment, only 13 African countries have submitted plans. I don't know. I don't have any information whether Nigeria is one of those 13 countries, because we tend to do everything very late. Some countries have started vaccination. Mauritius, Seychelles, Guinea, Morocco. South Africa is planning to start. Morocco, Algeria. When is Nigeria going to start? So it's not just that they will give you vaccine. Dr. Moeti, Machidiso Moeti, the WHO representative, says they don't want a situation whereby any vaccine, any dose will be wasted. Now in Nigeria, only 2 states are talking about cold chain storage. In Kaduna, Governor Rufai is deploying drones to deliver cold storage value chain compliant drones. In Ekiti State, Governor Fayemi is also talking about solar-powered, refrigerators. Now, which other governors are thinking ahead? In Kogi, the governor is saying there is no COVID. He's saying that vaccine is dangerous. So we need to know what we are doing. So this is the challenge. It's not just about COVAX bringing vaccines. Is Africa prepared? In Tanzania, Magufuli is talking nonsense.